Okay, so I'm going to do the properties as their own little video real quick, just to separate them off and like be able to take a picture so that you don't have to try to write this all down, because it was annoying enough for me to write it all down. So I can only imagine from your perspective. So if you want it in notes, like to take it down, awesome, do that. If you want to just take part of it, great. Like maybe the property in the example. For me, the words, like we'll talk about it, but it doesn't do much. I want to see what it looks like. But otherwise, again, I'll take a picture of this and have it posted online so that you just have them all in one spot, and you can just look at that if you want to. But when it comes to properties of real numbers, it's kind of our next section, just digging into the things that we use all the time. Okay? And we use these properties like literally every time we've ever solved an equation. You are using the first four properties over and over and over. Okay? They're the things that are going on in the background anytime you're trying to get rid of things from an equation. Okay? And then the bottom three, like the names should ring a bell because they're the same three properties we've talked about for forever. So just want to talk through them real quick so that we can get into the different things that are actually in the lesson. The first two are what are known as identities, the additive identity and the multiplicative identity. Okay? And an identity is something that never changes, okay, or something that just stays the same. Okay? So the additive identity says adding 0 doesn't change my number. Okay? So the additive identity is the number 0. I can add 0 as many times as I want to something, and the number's not going to change at all. Okay? So like if I do 3 plus 0, I still have 3. Okay? The multiplicative identity says that multiplying by 1 doesn't change the number. So the multiplicative identity is the number 1, because if I do 5 times 1, I still have 5. Okay, so an identity leaves a number alone. Its examples are pretty boring. The next two are inverses, the additive and multiplicative inverse. Okay. These are the things we do to get to this point. Okay. And these are the ones, again, we use all the time in equations, so we can get something like this and we get stuff to cancel out. So anytime you like cancel something out by adding or subtracting in an equation, you're actually using the additive inverse. Because the additive inverse is a number we add to get 0. 0 is awesome, because 0 doesn't do anything. Okay, so like if I have 4, and I want to cancel it out, add a -4 to it. Because 4 plus -4 is 0, boom, gone. So it's just like anytime you have the equation, if you have the equation x plus 4 equals 9. Okay, I want to get rid of a 4, add a -4 to it. Okay, and if I add a -4 to both sides, this is going to be x plus 0, which is 5. Okay. And that's the additive identity. Okay. Anything plus 0 is itself, which is why we usually just skip this step and we say, oh, hey, those canceled out. So we just have x equals 5. Okay, so like these two work together every single time you ever solve an equation. They're what's going on in the back. Okay, multiplicative inverse is the same idea, but with multiplication. Okay, so it's the thing we multiply by to get a 1. Okay, so if I have a 2/3 and I want to get rid of it, multiply by 3/2. Because 2/3 times 3/2, the 2's will cancel, the 3's will cancel, and I'm left with a 1. Okay, so it's the same idea over here, but it would be like if I had a 2/3 on the front of the number, and I wanted to get rid of this, I could multiply by 3/2. Multiplied by 3/2, because then these guys will cancel and cancel, and I'll just have a 1 left. 1x, 1 times anything, keeps it the same. And then over here, 8 times 3 is 24. 24 divided by 2 is 12. 2/3 times 12 equals 8. So, much like these two are always paired together, so are these two. Those two properties always work together every time I solve an equation. Okay, so those are the ones you're not as familiar with, at least by name. The three you're familiar with, hopefully, are the commutative property, the associative property, and the distributive property. Okay, commutative, commute, to move. Okay, so the commutative property is the moving property. It says, hey, you can add or multiply in any order. 11 plus 7 is the same thing as 7 plus 11. It doesn't matter which order you do it when it's adding and multiplying. Okay, the associative property, associating with someone is like hanging out with them. Okay, so the associative property is who are you hanging out with? It says when it's adding or multiplying, you can group them in any order. Okay, so if I had it like this to start, And then I look at it like, wait, I'd rather add the 3 and the 7 first because they make a nice even number of 10. Great, do that. Adding and multiplying, you can do it in whatever order works best. And then we have the distributive property. The distributive property is giving something out. Okay, so if you have a set of parentheses and something out in front of it, multiply by everything in those parentheses. Okay, so like if I have a 4 here, distribute it to everything in the parentheses. 4 times x, 4 times 2, and we get 4x plus 8. So again, the properties we use all the time, they're going on in the background, and this is what all the skills in section 2 are going to be about.